Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast. My name is Simone, and I'm your host for this episode. So this week, we're going to be talking about art and Black Nihilism. So this is another philosophy that looks a bit different than the traditional form of nihilism that you may have previously heard of. If you don't know what nihilism is, according to the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, nihilism is the belief that all values are baseless and that nothing can be known or communicated. Black nihilism, however, is slightly different. According to Cornel in his book Race Matters, to be understood here not as a philosophical doctrine that there are no rational grounds for legitimate standards of or authority. It is far more the lived experience of coping with a life of horrifying meaninglessness, hopelessness, and most important, lovelessness. And so this is going to be the framework in which I'll be exploring the works of art for today's episode. And I do not doubt that there is more art than what I'll be covering today that might express some of these same sentiments. So if you have any you'd like to share, drop them in the comments below. With that being said, let's get started. The first work of art that will be discussed in this episode will be an old spiritual called Still Away to Jesus. The song was composed by Wallace Willis, who composed other well-known hymnals, so Swing Low, Sweet Chariot is one of those, if you've heard of it. Wallace Willis was a Black Native American. He was said to have been born in the year 1820 on a plantation in Mississippi. The song Still Away to Jesus appears to have been composed sometime prior to 1862 and was performed, it is believed to have first been performed like on a stage where to get to a lot of people by the Jubilee Singers at Fisk University in 1871. And it became well known after that because the Jubilee Singers, they performed it like across the US and also over in Europe as well. I'm going to link a performance of the song below. The Jubilee Singers are kind of still performing the song, so I'm going to link a copy of performance of that below. The version of the song that I listened to and that kind of stuck with me, that I felt kind of captured the Black nihilism as well, was a performance by Reverend Pearly Brown. And so while singing this song, I'm actually going to link that song below as well. But while singing this song, he kind of talks about how he heard this song from his grandmother, who was also enslaved. She was born into slavery. And just kind of, he talks about the story. And then if you look into Reverend Pearly Brown's background, he was a street musician. He was actually born blind, and he was born in Georgia in 1915. He his mother died when he was young. His father kind of didn't actually accept him, and he slept out in the barn until he was kind of taken in by his grandmother. In which case, in that time, he went to a school for the blind, and I think he got up until about 8th grade when he graduated, and then after he graduated, he kind of went into the church, and after being in the church, he kind of went into music, and he often kind of performed on street corners and stuff to make money, and that was kind of how he survived. So the song Still Away to Jesus, it goes as follows. I'm going to recite the lyrics here. So the refrain goes, steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay here. My Lord, he calls me by the thunder, the trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away home. Green trees are bending, poor sinners stand a-trembling, the trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away home. My Lord, he calls me by the lightning, the trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay here. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus, steal away home. So while I was listening to this song, I did feel that it captured the Black Nihilism in a very unique way. Felt that it captured like the lived experience of coping with a life of horrifying meaninglessness, hopelessness, and the lovelessness that's kind of discussed in the definition that we're working with. This can be seen in the lyrics and their meaning, because to steal away to Jesus, as in to leave in a way that you won't be noticed, to Jesus, or in this case, like it most likely is a euphemism to getting into heaven. And so, considering that this song was sung by someone who at the time was enslaved, we can understand a bit more why this song could embody that meaninglessness and hopelessness discussed earlier, because likely they did not like being enslaved. And this is like these feelings of meaninglessness, hopelessness, lovelessness is not unlike our next work of art. So our next work of art is the first official EP by Vince Staples, Hell Can Wait. So this EP was released in 2014. Vince Staples, a Long Beach, California native, talks about his time growing up in Long Beach before he gets into high school. So this track is supposed to represent around when he's around 13. He kind of talks about that in the song. So this 7-track EP is a really good listen, and I highly recommend you check it out if you have not done so already. If you've not really checked out the artist Vince Staples at all, I definitely recommend him. I think he's a very commendable artist. But yeah, so in the song Fire, this is the very first track, he talks about what it was like for him growing up in his neighborhood and the things he had to do to survive at 13 years old. In 6500 Degrees, which is track 2, he talks about the things he sees and more of some of the things he has to do to make sure he survives. Yeah, survival is kind of a really, really big theme in this EP. Track 3, Screen Door, he's talking about some of the stuff that he's witnessing, living while like living where he's living. So like he's talking about drugs and addiction and like witnessing that in the people around him and like kind of the stuff he sees around his neighborhood. On track 4, Hands Up, he talks about police brutality and what it's like to witness and to be oppressed by the police. On track 5, Blue Suede, this is the leading single for the project actually, and it's one of the singles I first heard by him. Vince talks more about what it was like to live in the hood. On track 6, Limos, he's talking about avoiding relationships, especially in a way that might lead you into having a kid you do not want, or into a relationship that will likely drain you. On the last track of this episode of this EP, not episode, but on the last track of this EP, track 7, Feeling the Love, Vince talks about what his reality looked like growing up in his neighborhood. So this EP sort of encapsulates the Black Nihilism that we discussed earlier. So this lived experience of coping with a life of horrifying meaninglessness, hopelessness, and most important, lovelessness. So while researching for this episode, I learned quite a lot. So I'm going to post some of the things that I found that were interesting that I didn't exactly get the chance to kind of put in this video, but like I watched a lot of video essays, I read a lot of articles, I read even like some bits and pieces of a dissertation, in some books, and this was actually a really interesting and kind of a fun episode. And so I'm going to post some of the things that I might have watched but didn't get the chance to kind of talk about in this that I just thought might be interesting for other people to check out. But I'll post that in the description box below. But back to topic at hand. So I say, being Black myself, I have grown up to be very aware of Black nihilism, or just the lived experience of coping with a life of horrifying meaninglessness, hopelessness, and lovelessness. So I wasn't too surprised to see this sentiment show up in Black art, and be as present as it is in a lot of the Black art, even just the two works of art that we're kind of discussing this episode. So I wasn't at all surprised to know or to see this nihilism show up in Black art, even at the very beginning, because the hymnal Steal Away to Jesus, composed in the 1800s. And so, yeah. So both of these works of art elicit the gravity of the Black experience through the art for the time period that they exist in. So in Steal Away to Jesus, we hear someone desiring to escape the life that is living under slavery, and Hell Can Wait captures the complexities of living in a poor neighborhood and growing up in an environment where survival is the top priority. Both of these works of art express the hopelessness found in Black nihilism. So in Steal Away to Jesus, the line, "I ain't got long to stay here," evokes the feelings of being hopeless in much change. Almost as in the singers are banking on or like praying for an end to what they are experiencing, and they're hoping that it ends soon. They are wanting to move on, to steal away to Jesus, and they are only biding their time in the meantime. Just like in track 7, Feeling the Love of Hell Can Wait, Vince talks about growing up impoverished and the things he had to do to not feel that way. He used lyrics like, 2006, I said I had to get my money right. Shit, I refuse to hear my stomach growl another night. Might put that burner right up in your mouth and free your mind. Then run your pockets, I ain't stopping till my kids is fine. These works of art are great examples of Black nihilism. In like just those lyrics alone, he's talking about doing what he has to do to make sure he doesn't have to go another night without food. But yeah, these works of art, they also both explore the meaninglessness that can be found in the Black experience. And Steal Away to Jesus, in the lyrics, green trees are bending, poor sinners stand a trembling, the trumpet sounds within my soul, I ain't got long to stay here. These lyrics sort of depict someone who they are seeing the time pass, they're witnessing the harm doers trembling, but these harm doers haven't actually been dealt with. And yet while they know that they will be with Jesus, they hear that trumpet within their soul, they know where they're going. However, they still have to toil, they still have to work themselves to the bone and simply wait. And just they ain't got long to stay here. And so that's kind of all they just keep telling themselves. Like, I ain't gonna be here from very much longer. And so they just almost like this meaninglessness. They talk about how when it's all said and done, they will be with Jesus at the end of this, and that's what matters. And to me that does read as the meaninglessness, because what does it matter that they are experiencing harm and being actively oppressed in the moment if all they have to look forward to is death? On the Hell Can Wait EP, on track 1, Vince talks about what it was like growing up for him at the age of 13, detailing his family's struggles with finances and what he did to make ends meet for him and his family. With the hook that repeats, I'm probably finna go to hell anyway, showing a feeling of meaninglessness. Like, what I'm doing doesn't matter because I'm going to go to hell anyway. I simply need to survive. And also the EP Hell Can Wait discusses the lovelessness that Cornel West mentions in the definition of Black nihilism. And it's fairly upfront in the song Limos, which is track 6. He kind of talks about how falling in love romantically can be the road to ruin, that it can interfere with any plans you might have for yourself, at least in regards to romantic relationships. Now in track 7, Feeling the Love, I do think that showcases more of this lovelessness as well. like just not in the general romantic sense, which I think might have been the way in which Cornel West might have been meaning in his definition. But so at least in the way that I am interpreting it, I find it interesting that all of the hardship, all of the struggle, all of the trauma that he's enduring during this time is equated to love. Because in any other situation, those things would not be considered love. Like, they would be what they are. They would be financial struggles. They would be witnessing crime. They would be experiencing trauma. They would be exactly those things. And yet by saying like in the hook of the song, he say he's feeling the love. Like, he's seeing this stuff, and yeah, he's feeling the love. And so yeah, by saying he's feeling the love, he is kind of like just corroborating that he is feeling this hardship. He is feeling this pain that actually isn't really love at all. Kind of expressing that lovelessness that I think Cornel West was kind of getting to in his definition. Now with the song Steal Away to Jesus, there aren't any lyrics personally that I felt expressly stated anything about lovelessness that the singer is experiencing. However, I don't doubt that the lovelessness is present, if only because I can't imagine wanting to steal away when I am surrounded by love. And that's just my interpretation. Something I will say I did think was really cool about Steal Away to Jesus is that it said that this song may have been like another one of those songs. So that was used as code for slaves to escape. So I believe like Wade in the Water, that's a very common hymn that has been said to be also being used as a code for slaves to escape. And so like in my research, I found out that this song also was, which I didn't know previously, because honestly I hadn't heard this particular hymn before. So it is said that the line, "My Lord, He calls me by the thunder," that line was used to let those that were enslaved know to leave during a rainstorm, so that it can be used as cover as they were making their way to the Underground Railroad. And I thought that was really neat. Something that I thought was really cool about the Hell Can Wait EP was how much was expressed in just these 7 songs. I've been a fan of a few of the singles by Vince Staples for a little bit, and so I kind of visited his discography, and like I literally like went to the very first album and listened all the way from that up to this. And so like I've kind of just been experiencing his discography because I liked a few of his singles, and this EP stood out in particular for this particular episode. I felt like it was a good, quick, and like almost like compact way to like capture this. But I will say I do think Black Nihilism shows up in a lot of his work, so definitely check him out if you're interested in hearing how that shows up for Vince in a lot of his projects. But yeah, this was a really cool episode, at least in my opinion. And maybe even Black Nihilism can be art like everything else. Last and certainly not least is this week's Awe Moment. So for those new to listening, the Awe Moment is art that made me think for whatever week it was that I filmed this episode. So the art that made me think this week was actually a quote from Vince Staples. So for those who don't know, Vince recently released an album, Dark Times. Go check it out. I've heard good things. And so this quote is actually from an interview with Rolling Stones with their journalist Andre G. Yeah, so it's the interview about the latest album, Dark Times. So the quote reads, "That's what art is, right? Art is translation. You're translating your emotions, your environment, your point of view, your perspective to outside people." I will be linking the full interview in the description below, but a bit of context for this quote comes after a question about voyeurs in hip hop who perceive traumatic stories as entertainment. Vince had a really good response, so definitely go and check out the full thing. But the quote I pulled out was a part that I really liked, because I think it's a really cool way to view art. It's something I've thought of for a while too, honestly. When I used to have a blog, I actually had an article about language and the gaps that art fills in between, because I do think art is absolutely a means of communication, and it's a way of kind of being able to express and show and give voice to specific feelings that might be almost difficult to otherwise. But like something that in reading this like interview kind of made me think about is like, I do often wonder about just how often Black art is lost in translation, and how it is not seen for the intentions being translated often, whether that be because people are assuming that you are glorifying certain lifestyles by talking about your experience, or because they already see Blackness a very specific way, so they don't really engage the artist's work as that of a person, but simply another caricature of Blackness. It kind of reminds me of a while ago, on TikTok, there was a trend of people kind of like pretending to be in the booth, singing like Murder on My Mind by YNW Melly, and everyone was acting like really aggressively, and like they were aggravated or like agitated, and just like almost like really like violent in the booth, and like acting out the lyrics that he's singing in the song. And like I remember, because when I heard the song, it's a sad song. He's talking about having PTSD and not feeling like he can trust anyone, not getting to see his family. Like, it's a sad song. But if you saw this trend, you think that wasn't actually the case, that wasn't what was being discussed in the lyrics. And it was heartbreaking, like really, because I notice this a lot when it comes to Black art specifically. Granted, I will say, it's not that I'm not saying this doesn't happen in other forms of art. This is simply where I notice it the most, because this is kind of the type of art I engage with more often. But so much of Black art is lost in translation. So like, I can listen to a song or an album by a Black artist and be like, damn, this is heartbreaking, this is really sad. And then like you look online or you hear other people talk about it, and they don't appear to have like caught like the gravity of what's being discussed, or like understanding or like hearing the heartbreak on the other end of like what's happening, and like the realities that people are expressing through these mediums. And I don't know, maybe this is a part of a larger conversation to be had, and I don't know how you stop it at this point, but it is sad, and it's something I do think about a lot, actually. But anyways, please like, follow, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this episode down in the comments below. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.